everyone, I'm Abigail, this is Eli, and welcome to another Two Kids interview. Today we are joined by New York Times bestselling author Stacia Deutsch. Miss Deutsch has written over 300 books. That's ridiculous. Right.
Yes,
She has
yes.
written novelizations and movie tie-in books, as well as the Lego Elves, Girls Who Code, the Jessi Files, Ghostly Tales, and her Blast of the Past series. She has also written nonfiction books on historical figures, and of course, so much more. And on September 25th, Miss Deutsch has a new book, Vashon Island Visitors, hitting bookstores. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. How much fun is this?
Can you remember all 300 plus books you have written?
That's a really good question. I can remember the titles and what they are about, but I might not remember like little details, like maybe what shoes somebody's wearing, who their neighbors are, their dog's name. I might forget some of that stuff. Although I bet that if I try really hard, I can remember. Because when you write a book, it's not like super fast, right? Well, I'm fast, but I'm living with those characters for a long time.
Yeah.
So they kind of get stuck in your head. Yeah.
Do you remember your first book?
I do. My very first book that I had published was Blast of the Past, Lincoln's Legacy. I remember everything about it.
What is your favorite genre to write?
So that's a really hard question. I like adventure. I really like adventure, but isn't every book kind of an adventure? I like mystery, and I write a lot of mystery books, right? I wrote a bunch of the Boxcar Children books. I've written some Nancy Drew books. And then they let me write the newest Boxcar Children books, which have my name on it and not another name on it. So the Jessi Files, there's 3 books out now, with a 4th one hopefully coming soon. And those are all mystery adventure stories about one of the kids from the Boxcar books. If you didn't know, like those other books, I'm a ghostwriter, and I do a lot of ghostwriting, which means sometimes books come out that don't have my name on them, that sometimes books come out that'll have somebody else's name on the cover. Sometimes it's a made up name, sometimes it's a real name, but I do a lot of that. So there's tons of books out there that maybe I wrote that you would never guess that I wrote.
How did the transition go from being a rabbi to a children's author? And has being a rabbi impacted your writing at any way?
So my favorite thing about being a rabbi was the stories. And Jewish life is full of stories. There's the stories in the Torah. There's stories in other writings. There's stories about ancient rabbis. There's stories from towns like Helm. We have so many stories. And now when I look back and I think, oh, what did I love about being a rabbi? It was that. All those stories. And there's no way that those don't impact me. Like every day they impact me. So Blast of the Past was about my very first series, right? Was about 4 kids who time travel and meet famous people in history. And there is like this old Jewish story about Moses time traveling to a yeshiva, which is like a school, and finding out that the kids all are being taught in the name of Moses. And I thought about that story, like, wouldn't that be cool? Like Moses goes to a school in the future and finds out that they're still learning. So in my books, the kids grab Abraham Lincoln and they take him to the future to show him how important it is, right? So it's very similar. And all those biblical stories and all those old Jewish stories are in my head all the time. There's just no separating Stacia the rabbi from Stacia the children's writer. It's all the same.
When you are writing for different characters within a book, how much do you have to change your mindset when writing each character?
Well, first of all, I'm not 7 or 8 or 10 or 12, right? So I like to spend time with kids to learn about how you talk and how kids think. You know, sometimes I'll be like, do kids say cool? Do they say awesome? Is there another word that I don't even know? When I was a kid, we used to say rad about everything. I don't think that you've probably ever said rad, like radical, dude. I don't think kids talk like that anymore. So I have to spend a lot of time like learning and thinking about how kids think. I think with my writing, my style feels very 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old-ish. And I don't have a hard time getting into those heads. I can imagine what it would be like. I will tell you something new. Lately, I've been forgetting about technology. Think about how much technology has changed in the last 20 years, right? When I started writing, kids didn't all have phones in their pockets. And now a lot of kids do. And if they don't, you have to explain why they don't have one, because maybe their parents don't want them to, or they got grounded and it got taken away. So all the internet and all of the phone stuff and all the changing technology, I need to keep talking to kids like you to find out what you're doing and what websites you're looking at. And if you're allowed to have your phone at school, because that stuff's always changing. And I don't want to mess up, because you know what? I'll get letters, get emails from kids like you. Tell me I'm wrong.
We're allowed to have technology at school, just we have to either put them in our locker, but I don't have any technology, but you have a school iPad. Yeah, except a school iPad. So if somebody has like a phone, they have to put it in their locker. And if they have a watch, they have to put it on school mode.
So I'm going to ask you a question. So I was just working on a new book, something that isn't even published, and I let the kids have their computers at lunch to play games against each other. Would that be allowed at your school?
Not our school. No. I mean, I'm not sure if other schools have lighter restrictions or heavier restrictions. And if we're like one time, so sometimes if we're still working on this math project and we ask a teacher if we can bring our iPad outside to keep working on it, then maybe, but
not to play a game, probably.
No. Yeah, not to. I'm not sure if any other schools in our area have like a lighter restriction code, maybe, but not ours. No.
Well, thank you for helping me with my research. I'm going to have to ask some more kids. That was very helpful, though. I might have to change that part of the book.
You have ghosts in a lot of books, especially when it's a real person. Is it hard to have their name on the book when you know it was really you?
It's not hard for me. I don't mind. I don't care. I don't think that like my ego is like, ooh, it has to be about Stacia all the time. Stacia, Stacia, Stacia. I don't have that. I have a lot of friends, though, who don't like that at all. If they go to a bookstore and see a book there, they want their name to be on the book. I just don't care. Like, I'm happy to write for somebody else. And yeah, it doesn't bother me. In fact, sometimes I forget when somebody asks me to work on a book, I forget to ask them if my name's going to be on the book or something else. Oh, you know what was funny is we got some covers the other day. One of my books, like Werewolf Weekend, I think you can find it on my website, was translated into Italian, and my friend couldn't find it on the Italian website. I mean, even when you put like translate Italian to English. And that's because the book, it said, was written by Be Afraid and Stacia Deutsch. Well, Be Afraid isn't a name. It's just silly. Yeah, so then I told her that she had to go look under Fraid, because it's BAFRAIDE, Fraid. So when she looked under the F's, she found my book.
What is your process when putting your book together? Do you decide the end before the middle, or do you put it together in order?
I go in order. So do you make like thinking maps at school, or what we might call an outline or a thinking chart? Do you do like that at school?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, we make outlines, but we do some other stuff. Yeah, last year we did this thing called boxes and bullets.
There you go.
When writing, we kind of like do an outline, then we'll like add more detail in. Yeah.
That's exactly how I work. So there's two different ways that people sometimes write books. Some people are called pantsers. That means that they write by the seat of their pants, which means that they just sit down at an empty page and write whatever flows out of that, just like that. I am not a pantser. I am an outliner. In fact, I do exactly what you just said. I write bullet points or fill out my outline, and then I fill in more detail and more detail and more detail until you can see the whole book. That works better for me. And I don't know how those other people do it, because it's not my style. So I am a big outliner. And sometimes when I'm done with the outline, I wish I was done with the book. I wish you could just stomp up and down on the outline, and then it would like pop out a book. Because by the time I've written the whole outline, I've written everything I was thinking. It's all down on paper. My outlines would be like 10 pages.
Yeah, we do like for example, summer is the best season, and then we do 3 main reasons. Yeah. And then we do 3 supporting details for each reason. True, that's what we did last year, yeah.
Exactly. And then just imagine that you take all of that with the supporting details, and then you write a paragraph about it. That's exactly how I work. Yes.
Can you tell us about a time when you were doing something and you noticed someone or something and thought, I need to put that in a book?
Like every day, all day, every day. maybe on my next book, I'm going to have like a Zoom call with two really cool kids who do a TV show on YouTube all day. You know what's my favorite story is that, and I haven't written it, you guys can write it if you want. When my son was like 5, he was in the back of the car and we had just parked somewhere and I heard him yell, "Oh, look, a jelly bean." And then he ate the jelly bean off the floor of the car. And I always want to do a time travel. Like, is it a time travel? Like, does it give him magic powers? Does it really just make him sick? Like, what happened? Like, in real life, he was fine. But in my story, could you imagine? Like, a million things could happen after he ate the jelly bean off the floor of the car. It's a good story, though. I just haven't written it yet.
The small story for that would just be a fart.
Maybe that. I don't know.
A magical fart.
Gross. It would be super funny. Oh, maybe. Let me think about that one some more. So everyday things happen that are really interesting or cool. Like, think about it all day long.
It isn't easy, and rejection seems to be a part of most writers' story. Can you tell us about that part of your story?
Rejection is awful, and it makes you sad. And I get rejected a lot. Even with 300 books, I get rejected a lot. I'll write something new, and then people who are in the business will say, "I don't like this story this time," or "We don't need a story about this," or "We don't need a story about that." I have a story about mermaids that I think is awesome, and it's been rejected. Oh, it's like so many times, 40 times, maybe more. And every time, I know. Why don't they love my mermaid story? I don't understand. Why don't they want the whole world to read it? I don't know. But I keep sending it out. Someday somebody's going to be like, "Wow, I was just looking for a mermaid story, and this is the one I was looking for." But and it makes you feel bad, like, oh my gosh, like there's something wrong, or I'm a bad writer, or I don't know what I'm doing, or blah, blah, blah. But it's not true. It's just the people who make books, if you're printing traditionally, if you're not doing like Kindle and Amazon, but you're going to like a traditional printing house, a traditional publisher, they only have a certain number of books that they can put out each year. If they did a mermaid book last year, maybe they don't want a mermaid book this year. Or maybe they don't think kids next year are going to be into mermaids. They think kids next year are going to be into unicorns. And so they don't want my mermaid book. Like, I don't know what they're thinking. Or maybe I just sent it to somebody on a really, really bad day, right? Their cat threw up in the morning on their new shoes. And they are in a bad mood. And they said no to every book that was on their desk that day. You don't know. So I can't take it super personally. Sometimes I'll rewrite it or rethink about it or change something. But most of the time, I just am like sad for a minute. I stomp around. I say, I can't believe they don't love my book, my mermaid book, my whatever book. And then I get over it and I write something new.
Honestly, I feel like it's kind of weird sometimes because why don't they just take the possibility of making more money? Yeah.
Would you call them and tell them that for me? I would be very grateful.
We've interviewed a number of authors who have had books banned, which means that many kids won't have access to the same books we do and possibly not see themselves represented in books. Can you give us your thoughts on this?
Yeah. Banning is bad? No, but I think exactly what you said is that a lot of kids aren't getting access to books that they really need access to. And that's really sad, right? Representation matters, and kids see themselves in books and in stories. And that's super important. And that's why kids should be making these decisions, whether or not, I mean, you know, in the beginning of a book, whether or not you want to keep reading it, or your parents can help you decide what books are appropriate for you. But I think that banning books is just, it's against everything that we stand for, everything that I stand for. Right? I want to read, and not just about people who are just like me. I want to read about people who are different than me. I want to read about kids who are struggling with their identity, or I want to read about kids who grow up in different places or different times. I don't want to just read about kids that are just like me, and I don't want to write just like about one kind of kid. There's a big, big world out there. And I think that banning books stops us from seeing how amazing the world is.
Yeah, like windows and mirrors. Windows, you can see somebody else. Mirrors, you can see yourself.
That's really good. And books are both, right? Books are both. And they should
Back
be
to
both.
the 300 books thing. If someone found out you are an author and asked you, I want to read just one of your books, only one. Which one would you recommend to them?
So people ask me that all the time. So some of it is like what you're interested in, right? I mean, if you love Lego Ninjago, go read a Lego Ninjago, right? If you love watching Spirit riding free on television, I wrote 7 books for that TV show. If you really like, I don't know. If you like Bigfoot books, my Bigfoot book is coming out next week. But my favorite book is my first one. It's like, I loved writing Blast of the Past. I love that book. I know that now it's getting old and like maybe things are going to start to feel dated and maybe the technology isn't what it should. Nobody has a phone. But I loved writing those time travel books. I wish that everybody would ask me to write more time travel. I love the idea that we can go to a different place and a different time and learn something about the people who lived there, but then not have to live there. I don't want to live in Abraham Lincoln's time. Ugh, no, I like our world better, but I want to go learn about it. And that's really amazing. So I guess if you had to ask me one, I would say Blast of the Past, Lincoln's Legacy, start at the beginning of my series. But if you really like coding, I love my Girls Who Code book called The Friendship Code. Those are really fun. I don't know. I like. Oh, you know what else I really, really like? It might be harder to get. There was a book called Mean Ghouls about a girl who gets a disease that's turning her into a zombie. I thought it was really funny. I think I'm really funny. Oh.
What advice do you have for young people who want to write?
Sit in a chair. Seriously, the hardest part about writing, the hardest part is sitting in a chair and writing. It's just you got to open your laptop, open your computer, get a piece of paper and sit in the chair because there are a million other things that we can do. We can go skateboarding, we can go for a walk, we can play with the dog, we can play a video game, we can watch TV. Billion other things that are so much fun. To write, you just have to plant your butt in a chair and not move. And it is hard. And that is the hardest part. I think anybody can write a book, anybody can write a story. It's just a matter of sitting down and staring at it until something happens, something magical happens.
That's big advice. Do you also have a smaller tip? Something you do when you're writing that maybe a lot of people don't?
Eat chocolate chips? Does that count?
Yes, it counts. It could count, yeah. That could accurately count.
That is something that I do that probably most other people don't.
I do that. I would definitely do that.
Oh, it makes you a better writer. You go tell your parents that it totally makes you a better writer to eat chocolate chips while you're working. Yes.
Can you tell us a project that you were working on that nobody knows about yet?
Yeah, probably. So sometimes those things are secret because you like don't spread the word until like the books come out, right? But this is a different kind of project for me. Instead of putting my name on a book and actually writing it, I'm editing a book, which I am so amazed that they are letting me be an editor on a book, but I'm editing a book about Barbie. And I'm so excited about that. Like, I cannot believe they asked me to write a book about Barbie. So I'm taking an older book and I'm taking down the number of pages. It was a really longer book, kind of the history of Barbie. And I'm going to cut out a lot of pages and make it a little bit like smoother because it's an older book. And then I'm going to add new chapter about the movie. And I'm super duper duper excited. So how's that for something that nobody knows about yet? I haven't even put that on my Instagram. You are first.
Thank you. Have you seen the Barbie movie yet?
I have. I need to see it a couple more times, especially if I'm going to write about it. I was actually trying to Google today to see if I could find the script, but I can't find the script online. So that's going to make it harder. But I'll try.
Yeah. Finally, it's time for Turbo 10. 10 rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes. Go.
Okay. Number 1, what is your favorite phrase to use?
I've already screwed the whole thing up. I messed everything up because I don't know. My favorite word is just, and then I have to go back and delete it out of my manuscripts because I used it so many times. Like I just answered your question.
Number 2, what is one subject you'd love to learn more about?
This is hard. Gosh, you should have sent them to me in advance. What is one subject I'd like to learn more about? Gosh, like a billion million things. I want to learn how to write a graphic novel.
Ooh, I love graphic novels.
I want to learn how to do that. Okay.
Number 3, what is your go-to snack food?
Chocolate chips. And if not chocolate chips, French fries. I am
Number
a French
4.
fry connoisseur. I go all over the place looking for the perfect fry.
Number 4, what is your favorite book growing up?
Wrinkle in Time.
Oh, I love that
Do I have
book.
to explain it or just is that good?
No, you're good. Number 5, if you could teleport somewhere right now, where do you go?
I was just with a friend and we were talking about where I'd like to travel, and I want to go to Asia. I've never been to Japan and I want to go to Japan.
Ooh.
And you know what? If I could teleport, I wouldn't have to take a plane, and that plane ride would be just a nightmare. It's so long. So I would teleport to Japan. I'll see you when I get back.
Number 6, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I'd like to be invisible.
Number 7, what was your favorite cartoon as a kid?
You're so good at this. Stump me over and over and over again. I am going to say you know what? My favorite cartoon as a kid. I had to watch all the things my brother wanted to watch. Maybe Tom and Jerry.
Okay.
It was very fun.
Number 8, what is your favorite rainy day activity?
Writing.
Number 9.
What's my favorite not rainy day activity? Writing.
Number 9, if you could have any 3 dinner guests, who would they be?
Dinner guests. See, again, I have to ask you, like, are they people who are my contemporaries who actually could come to dinner? Or are they people who, like, can I invite Albert Einstein?
No rules.
No rules. I love no rules.
Also, it could be a cartoon character. Even that.
Oh, okay. So I want Kermit the Frog, and I want Taylor Swift, and I want Albert Einstein.
Okay. Number 10. What was the best piece of advice you were ever given?
Butt in chair, fingers on keys. That's writing advice. Somebody else told me that. Oh, so I have like for writing,
Anything.
it could be for anything at all. The best. Oh, my sister. She said choose shoes. It means when you have a choice and you sometimes when you feel sad and you just want to stay inside and just be sad, she said, you get a choice. You can stay inside and feel sad, or you can put on your shoes. And then she said, I would suggest you choose shoes. So when you're sad, remember that. That's really good advice.
You were terrific. Thank you so much for doing that. And thank you so much for spending this time with us. We can't wait to read your future books, and Shana Tova, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. Thank you so much for this interview. This was really fun.